afternoon, students. I hope you all are doing good. Today we are going to begin with the last chapter of history, which is chapter 12, Culture and Science. Let us begin with this chapter. Students, in this chapter you will study the concepts which you have already studied in the previous chapters of history. Some topics are repeated. Okay, so just go through the topic, you will understand it all at once. Okay, it's very easy. Let us begin with the first topic, which is literature. About this also we have studied in the previous chapters of history. See the first topic. When we talk about literature, okay, students, when we talk about literature, we talk about the literary works, okay, of the early period. Okay, what books were written, what theses were written, the epics, the puranas, okay, जिसको हम बोलते हैं जो साहित्य कथा कहानियाँ जो इस तरह की जो चीज़ें होती हैं, the literary works, okay, about those we are going to study here. So the first one is the Vedas. We have studied about the Vedas also. See, read the line along with me. The Vedas are the oldest literature of India. Among all the literary work, okay, among all the literary work, the Vedas are the oldest literature of India. How old are they? It is around 2500 years old. Okay, 2500 years old. As you all know that there are four Vedas, right? Rig Veda, Samved, Yajurved and Atharv Ved. Now, among the four Vedas, out of which the Rig Veda is the oldest. So, among the four Vedas, like among Rig Veda, Samved, Yajurved and Atharved, Rig Veda is the oldest. Okay. Now, all these Vedas, earlier, students, earlier there were no papers. Okay. There were no papers. Okay, there were no papers. So how they used to write? They used to write on the bark of a tree. Bark of a tree. Okay, the tree's bark. Okay, and the bark of a tree was known as your Bhojpatra. Bhojpatra is known as the bark of a tree. जो bark of the tree होता है बेटा, उस tree पे, okay, उस उनके barks पे the Vedas were written and that is known as your भोजपत्र. Okay, जो वेदा लिखा जाता है, लिखने के बाद जो वो होता है उसको बोला जाता है भोजपत्र. ठीक है. Now, the Rig Veda describes the gods as natural forces. Now, all these four Vedas, okay, all these four Vedas talk about different things. Okay, you have studied about this previously. Now, the Rig Veda describes the god as natural forces. Okay, Rig Veda always tells that in Rig Veda it is written that the god is always denoted as the natural forces, means the people believe in the natural forces. They do not worship idols, जो मूर्तियों की पूजा नहीं करते थे, but they believe on natural forces like your sun, wind, rain, fire. मतलब वो इन चीज़ों को मानते थे, इन चीज़ों की पूजा करते थे, the natural forces. Okay, and Yajurveda. Now Yajurveda talk about medicinal system, Ayurveda. So in Yajurveda many things are found about Ayurveda, right? So in this way all the four Vedas tell us about different things that we have already studied in the chapter in the Vedic period. You can go back to that chapter and you can just check what all things are given under all the four Vedas, right? Now, this was the first literary work, the Vedas. Now, the second literary work is your Upanishad. About this also we have studied, right? Now, what is actually Upanishad, beta? See, read the line along with me. These books talk of life and life after death and cycle of rebirth. So, in Upanishad is also a book, okay? Now, in that book, what all things are written, okay? In Upanishad, generally many things are told about life. जिंदगी के बारे में कैसे जिया जाता है, क्या होता है, everything, the natural things about life, it is described, okay? And life after death, मृत्यु के बाद की जिंदगी क्या होती है, कैसे होती है, okay? मृत्यु के बाद means after the death, after the death क्या होता है, वो सारी चीज़ें डिस्क्राइब करी गई है. एंड द साइकिल ऑफ रीबर्थ मीन्स पुनर्जन्म. इन सब चीज़ों के बारे में उपनिषद में लिखा गया है, राइट. नाउ इट ऑल्सो टॉक्स अबाउट आत्मा और द सोल एंड ब्रह्मांड. or the universal power or soul. मतलब उस बुक में किस चीज़ों की बात करी गई है? It talks about Atma. Atma means our soul. Okay, what is soul? What is Atma? About those things it is told. About ब्रह्मांड. ब्रह्मांड मीन्स जो यूनिवर्स है, यूनिवर्स के बारे में जितनी भी सारी चीज़ें, ब्रह्मांड में जो भी चीज़ें, सभी चीज़ों के बारे में उपनिषद में कहा गया है. सो ऑल दीज थिंग्स आर देयर इन उपनिषद्स, राइट. एंड देर आर मोर देन 100 उपनिषद, मतलब 100 से ज़्यादा उपनिषद लिखे गए हैं, राइट. So this is the second literary work. Now the third literary work is Puranas. Now what are Puranas? See, read the line along with me. These are religious books which talk about gods and goddesses. What are Puranas? Puranas are also the religious books. वो भी एक religious book था, लेकिन उस book में क्या लिखा गया है? उस book में किसके बारे में बात होती है बेटा? God and goddesses के बारे में. Okay, so it generally has what? This literature has stories on gods like Shiva, Vishnu, Durga, Parvati, etc. So ये जो book है पुराना, उसमें क्या है बेटा? The stories of whom? God and goddesses like Shiva, Vishnu, Durga, Parvati and many more. Okay, so it has stories of God and goddesses, right? Now the next literary work is your epics. Now what are epics? Epics are, see the line, these are narrative compilation which have been given out description of the life and heroic deeds of some gods and goddesses. Means narrative जिसमें पूरे बड़े तरीके से, अच्छे से, पूरे डिटेल में हर चीज़ को डिस्क्राइब किया गया है, पूरे डिटेल्स के साथ, एक एक छोटी छोटी चीज़ों के साथ पूरे चीज़ों को अच्छे से नरेट किया गया है, डिस्क्राइब किया गया है और सभी को एक साथ कंपाइल किया गया है. और ये किस चीज़ के बारे में बात करता है? इट टॉक्स अबाउट द लाइफ एंड द हीरोइक डीड्स ऑफ सम गॉड्स एंड गॉडेसेस. मतलब जो भी डीड्स, मतलब जो भी कर्म या फिर जो भी काम जो गॉड एंड गॉडेसेस ने किया है. द हीरोइक मीन्स very courageous work, okay, and their life, about their deeds, about their work, what all they have done. So everything is described in the epics, okay, detailed description, right? Now Ramayana and Mahabharata are two important epics of India. In India we have two important epics, that is Ramayana and Mahabharata. Okay, now Ramayana. Who composed Ramayana? Rishi Valmiki. And in which language it was written? Sanskrit, right? And Mahabharata. Mahabharata was composed by Rishi Vyas. So Ramayana was composed by Rishi Valmiki and Mahabharata was composed by Rishi Vyas. Okay? Rishi means Rishi Muni जो होते हैं. Okay, Rishi. Now the last topic is other literary works. So apart from your Vedas, Upanishads and Puranas, epics, there are many other literary works. So what are they? See, new religions like Buddhism and Jainism came into being. Okay, as you know that in the Vedic period and after the Vedic period also, these two religions became very popular, and there were many books, there were many literary works on these religions, Buddhism and Jainism, who talked about Buddhism and Jainism. So there are many literature like Jataka Tales, Kalpasutra, Panchatantra, which talks about these two religions, Buddhism and Jainism, about their religious belief, about their teachings, what this religion tells, the religious belief, everything about these religions. Okay, so this is the literary work, or we can say the literature of India, right? Now coming to the art and architecture part. Now you know that students, there was huge development in art and architecture. You will see that there are many historical monuments, many buildings are there, many old temples are there, many caves are there, many old paintings are there which are done inside the caves. Okay, many old historical buildings are there. what all these shows, beautiful buildings are there, beautifully carved, beautifully sculpted, beautifully painted. All these shows the art and architectural development, how the art and architecture was developing. Okay, so these all are the examples of art and architecture in India. Let us study about those. Now, the first point tells us that besides literature, means literature के अलावा भी आर्ट एंड आर्किटेक्चर, म्यूजिक आर एसेंशियल कंपोनेंट्स ऑफ कल्चर. इंडिया का जो कल्चर है बेटा, वो सिर्फ उसके लिटरेचर से नहीं जाना जाता है, बट उसके आर्ट, आर्किटेक्चर, उसके म्यूजिक से भी जाना जाता है. सो कल्चर का मतलब सिर्फ लिटरेचर नहीं होता है. कल्चर सभी चीज़ों को मिला के कहा जाता है. उसका लिटरेचर, आर्ट, आर्किटेक्चर, म्यूजिक, everything, okay, is known as the culture. Now, the next point says is the early man made cave paintings with the use of long lasting colors and dyes were brought into use. You know that the dyes जो रंगते हैं, जो रंगना होता है ना dyes से. So the early men used to paint the caves. You studied about this in the previous chapters of history, that they used to paint the caves and the walls, everything. Okay, so in this way they used to contribute towards the art. And Bhimbetka is the oldest cave. Bhimbetka is the oldest cave paintings, and the fine art and the craftsmanship of Ajanta and Ellora caves bring out the transformation and the growth of art. So the Bhimbetka cave, art, Ajanta and Ellora caves, so all these shows the art and architectural development during that period. Okay, there were many paintings which were there in Bhimbetka cave. Art, Ajanta and Ellora caves, you can see that the buildings of Ajanta and Ellora caves are beautifully has beautiful structures, beautiful designs, beautiful dancing patterns, beautiful sculpted materials are there, which shows that how they were developed. Means उस ज़माने में भी आर्ट और आर्किटेक्चर कितना ज़्यादा डेवलप था, जो इतनी ब्यूटीफुल पेंटिंग्स और इतनी ब्यूटीफुल बिल्डिंग्स, मॉन्यूमेंट्स उस टाइम पे पाए जाते थे, जो कि अभी भी मौजूद हैं. Now, the next is temples. Okay, during those times there were beautiful temples which were built by the people. So the temples also built with the unique designs. So they had beautiful designs. Okay, the temples which had garbhagriha, shikhara, mandapa. Okay, so these are the parts of the temples beta. Garbhagriha means garbhagriha is the place where the deity was placed. जो मूर्तियों को जहाँ पे रखा जाता है, भगवान की मूर्तियों को जहाँ पे रखा जाता है, उसको बोला जाता है गर्भ गृह. Now the next is your शिखारा. What is शिखरा? Or you can say शिखर और शिखारा. Okay, then came the शिखर और शिखारा. जो आपके ऊपर का, जो मंदिर के ऊपर का हिस्सा होता है, उसको बोला जाता है शिखर और शिखारा. Okay, now then the मंडपा. ओके, जो वहाँ पे मंडप होता है, जहाँ पे वो एक ऐसा प्लेस है जहाँ पे लोग एक साथ इकट्ठे होके कोई कार्य करते हैं, जैसे कोई पूजा हो गई या कुछ हो गई, तो वो मंडप पे किया जाता है. सो दीज आर द पार्ट ऑफ द टेम्पल. सो ऑल दीज थिंग्स वर यूनिकली built. Okay, now the next is your the famous rock cut temples are those of Ellora caves. So Ellora caves में जो special rock cut temples हैं, rock cut temples मतलब जो बड़े बड़े पत्थर होते थे उनको काट के temples बनाया गया है. They are the huge example of your architecture, art and architecture. Okay, ना उसके अलावा बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं, other famous temples, बहुत सारे अलग अलग temples हैं जो बहुत famous art and architectural temples हैं. See those at Mahabalipuram in Tamil Nadu, Chalukyas at Ehol, Badami in Karnataka, as well as the temples at Ujjain. Okay, these are the places where you will find traditional, okay, traditional temples which were built by the early men. Okay, how they used to, early men, not exactly the early men, we can say the artisans of those period. Okay, so how beautifully they made this. So there was huge development in the art and architecture in the early time. Okay, now so here we studied about the literature of the India plus the art and architecture. Now we are going to study about the sculpture. You very well know about the sculpture beta. Okay, The sculpture means generally, okay, you read the paragraph, you will understand. See, the sculpture with poor quality tools and brittle surface of stone. The work was very challenging for the artisans. Now, sculpting, how they do it? They actually use a hammer, or they use a sharper tools, and they cut the rock. Okay, they cut the rock, and rock, and they give shape to the rock or the stones, and they form some identifiable things, and that process is known as your sculpting. Okay, there were many sculptures. Okay, sculptures are the person who do sculpting works. Okay, so there were many artisans who actually did stone work. Okay, they did sculpting. Okay, so earlier what used to happen, beta? Earlier there were very poor quality of tools, means as we know that during early times they didn't had any idea of uh, good tools, sharp tools. Okay, so they don't have so they didn't had very good quality tools. And plus the brittle surface of the stone surface was also very brittle, it was not very smooth. Okay, the work was very challenging for the artisan. In this way, the work of the artisans were very challenging, means it was difficult for the artisans to work with those tools and to work in that brittle surface of the stones. Okay, now see the next line. They had to chisel out small chips, means they had to chisel out, chisel करना उसको, जैसे हम ऐसे ठोक ठोक कर तोड़ के निकालते हैं, chisel out, और या फिर उसको एक छीलना, जिस तरह से भी आप बोलो. Okay, they had to chisel out the small chips, छोटे छोटे चिप्स के फॉर्म में उसको निकालना पड़ता था, और उस रॉक या स्टोन को शेप देना पड़ता था. ओके, cutting on stones and shaping it without any drawings and drill, electric saws and machines. It was indeed amazing to see the quality of work which could be achieved by them. Now उनके पास कोई स्टोन्स जो जो वो स्टोन्स को काट कर एक स्कल्पचर बनाते थे, उनके पास ना ही उस पर कोई ड्राइंग करते थे, ना ही उस पर कोई ड्रिल करते थे. ड्रिल करना मतलब किसी मशीन से छेद करना. ना उनके पास इलेक्ट्रिक सॉ था जिसको सॉ को यूज़ करना. दीज आर ऑल मशीन्स. ओके, ना कोई और मशीन्स थे जिसके हेल्प से वो ये सब चीज़ कर सकते थे. उनके पास ये सारी चीज़ें नहीं थी. उनके पास बेटर क्वालिटी टूल्स नहीं थे, उनके पास मशीन्स नहीं थी, कुछ भी नहीं था. उसके बावजूद भी वो लोग इतने मेहनत से क्या करते थे? द क्वालिटी ऑफ वर्क वॉज अमेजिंग. जो इतने मेहनत से वो करके स्कल्पटिंग करते थे विदाउट हैविंग all these quality tools and without the usage of any good machineries. They used to build many good items by sculpting. Okay, in the temples also you have studied about many things. Okay, through which they have done many sculptural work are famous in India. Okay, many idols are there, many बहुत सारी मूर्तियां हैं जो जिनको बनाई गई थी. द स्कल्पचर ऑफ लॉर्ड बुद्धा, जो लॉर्ड बुद्धा की मूर्ति है वो पूरे एक स्टोन से बना गया है. एक स्टोन मतलब उसमें स्टोन नहीं जोड़ा गया, एक ही स्टोन से काट काट कर उसको उस आइडल को बनाया गया. सो इन दिस वे मेनी स्कल्पचरल वर्क्स आर made, are done. Okay, sculptures are made. Now the next is your science and technology. Now what about science and technology? Now students, as we know that the early men were gaining knowledge about science and technology, right? उनको पहले कुछ नहीं पता था, but slowly and slowly they came across many things. Why? How they came across many things? Because they started to move. Earlier what used to happen? They used to stay at one place. Okay, you know that, right? They used to stay at one place, but slowly when they started to move from different places, they got many new ideas about farming. They got many new ideas about taming the animals. They got many new ideas about the cultivating of crops, new pattern, as well as they got many new ideas about the tools to use for croppings and many more things. Okay, in this way there was development in the science and technology also in the ancient time. Okay, slowly they came across the use of metal, so they started to use the tools made up of metal. So they started to use copper, they started to use iron. Okay, so in this way they started to use metal in the place of any स्टोन टूल्स और वुडन टूल्स, मतलब स्टोन टूल्स और वुडन टूल्स की जगह पे वो अब मेटल टूल्स यूज़ करना स्टार्ट किए. Okay, so this paragraph says that the science of metallurgy, the science of metallurgy was quite developed in ancient India. The iron pillar in Delhi near the Qutub Minar is an example of this. Metallurgy, जब वो उनको जब मेटल्स के बारे में नॉलेज मिला, जब उनको ये मेटल्स मिले कॉपर एंड आयरन, दे गॉट द नॉलेज ऑफ मेटलर्जी, मीन्स हाउ टू यूज दिस मेटल्स to make the products like your tools, like any other sharper machineries or any other thing, okay, in which they can utilize the metal. Okay, so there is a pillar in Delhi which is near Qutub Minar, iron pillar, which is very famous, and that iron pillar is a great example of this science and technology. Okay, and this has not rusted despite the hundreds of years it has been exposed to weather, means still it is not rusted. जैसे आप देखते हैं बेटा जो लोहे पे जंग लग जाती है, ओके, जो आप देखते होंगे, ओके, रस्ट हो जाता है, सो वो पिलर अभी भी बिल्कुल रस्ट नहीं हुआ है. सो यू कैन इमेजिन हाउ ब्यूटिफुली एंड हाउ नाइसली दोज थिंग्स वर made that it is still in a very good condition in present also, right? Now the next is your astronomical advancement. So this is also the part of science and technology. We will see what all development was made in astronomy. Now students, what is astronomy? Astronomy, or astronomical, we can say astronomy, is the study of your stars, moons, galaxies, and etc. Okay, and the person who studies astronomy is known as astronomer. Okay, so here we are going to see what all developments were there, the astronomical developments. Okay, now see this paragraph. The scholar Aryabhat, okay, you might have heard about Aryabhat. The scholar Aryabhat, who was one of the 9 gems of Vikramaditya's court. We have studied in the previous chapters of history about Vikramaditya. Okay, in his court there were 9 gems, okay, 9 essential and important members, and among those 9 members, one of them was Aryabhat. Okay, and who was Aryabhat, beta? He was not only an astrologer, he was an astrologer, but along with the astrology, along with the astrologer, he was a great mathematician, that you know very well. Aryabhat was an astrologer as well as a great mathematician. Okay, he studied the movement of planets, how the planets move. He studied about that and explained the rotation of the earth and explained the phenomena of the rotation of the earth. मतलब उन्होंने planets के बारे में पढ़ा, उनके movements के बारे में पढ़ा कि planets कैसे rotate होते हैं, अर्थ कैसे रोटेट होता है, प्लैनेट्स किस तरह से मूव होते हैं, कहाँ मूव होते हैं, कौन सी जगह पे रहते हैं, अर्थ कैसे मूव होता है, वो सारी चीज़ों के बारे में उन्होंने पढ़ी है. ओके, एंड ही ऑल्सो एक्सप्लेन द कॉज ऑफ एक्लिप्सेस. एक्लिप्सेस क्यों होता है, जो सोलर एक्लिप्स होते हैं, लूनर एक्लिप्स होता है, क्यों होता है, वो क्या रीज़न है उसके पीछे, वो रीज़न के बारे में उन्होंने लोगों को बताया कि किस किस रीज़न से, किस वजह से एक्लिप्स होते हैं. सो अबाउट ऑल दीज थिंग्स ही टोल्ड विच वॉज अननोन टू द वर्ल्ड. सो ये सारी चीज़ों के बारे में भी लोगों को पता चलने लगा. ओके, सो इट वॉज अ ग्रेट अचीवमेंट. Now the next is mathematical contribution. अब mathematics के उसमें क्या contribution हुआ था, देखो आर्यभट्ट also discovered the formula of calculating the circumference of circle. जैसे आपने पढ़ा होगा बेटा area of rectangle, area of square, उसी तरह से होता है circumference of circle. So circumference of circle कैसे निकालेंगे, there is a formula, circumference of circle is equal to 2 pi r. So he also told about this formula. इस formula के बारे में किसने बताया था, आर्यभट्ट ने बताया था, to calculate the circumference of circle. He is also considered the pioneer of decimal system. Students, pioneer means generally the जो first explore करता है, जो पहले, pioneer means the first one. ओके, द फर्स्ट वन, जो इनिशिएटिव लेता है, जो पहले चीज़ों को एक्सप्लोर करता है या किसी चीज़ को जानता है, जो सबसे पहले. सो ही वॉज द वन हु वॉज who actually came to know about the decimal system. He was the one who actually pioneered decimal system. उन्होंने इस चीज़ की शुरुआत करी थी या फिर उन्होंने इन चीज़ों के बारे में दुनिया को नॉलेज दिया था. ओके, प्लस ही ऑल्सो गेव द नॉलेज अबाउट द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ ज़ीरो, and it was given by Aryabhat. Okay, so concept of zero was also given by him, right? कि ज़ीरो होता है, पहले ज़ीरो के बारे में नहीं पता था किसी को, तो डिजिट ज़ीरो was also given by Aryabhat. So this was the contribution by him in the mathematical grounds. Okay, now what were the contribution in medicine and sciences? See, Ayurveda or Ayurveda and yoga has been credited as science. ये science का ही part होता है, Ayurveda, yoga and everything. Okay, Atharva Veda of the Vedic period. You have studied about the four Veda, right? Among the four Veda, one is Atharva Veda. So like Atharva Veda, there is many things about Ayurveda. उसके बारे में बहुत, जो अथर्व वेद है उस वेद में बहुत सारी आयुर्वेदिक और उसके मेडिसिन के बारे में लिखा गया है, आयुर्वेदिक मेडिसिन. Then Charak Samhita is also there, which is by Charaka, and Sushruta Samhita is there by scholar Sushrut. So all these things, all these, you can say, the work give us the detail about the ailments and the treatment, about the medicines, how what all medicines are available, how they are treated, how they are used. All the details about the medicines are found in these works, literary works. Okay, so this is the contribution of India in the science and technology. So this we have studied about the culture and science, and how the people of the ancient time contributed towards the development of the culture and science of India. This is the very simple chapter and very easy to understand, beta, and many topics which you studied in this chapter are already repeated, okay, which is already given in the previous chapters. Okay, so this is all about this chapter. It's end now. Thank you so much.